So you're thinking about that script. How would you want to die? For me, I want to be about 90 years old, having watched my children go through college and be very successful, loving human beings, and no matter what they do. I want to be able to lovingly, having loved my wife to the very end of her life, caring for her. I want to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, I've lived a good life. And then when I'm 90 years old in good health, be able to have had a great day in church, to go home that evening, to pray, and to go to sleep and never wake up. That's how I'd want to do it. But will that happen? How do you not want to die? What is your biggest fear? I mean, I know for me, my biggest fear would be to be in a fire or to drown. These uncontrollable moments where I would be wrestling and fighting and not being able to survive, specifically with my children around. Have to name my fears. Have to name my concerns. So for you, write down quickly on a piece of paper, if you were to write the script of your life, how do you want to die? And you say, whoa, I don't. But again, we've talked about, let's not deny this. How would you want to die? Secondly, just mark down real quick, how would you not want to die? Now, as we move forward, a couple challenges before we finish. Now, we're getting close to the close. But have you ever written your own obituary? I know for my students in my class, not your class, but in my class, they'll actually have to write their own obituary. I mean, write it out as if you're writing the script. So you look at other obituaries and you write your own. And that is something that my students have to share. They have to share it with their classmates and they have to share it with others. Their family, namely. So when you write your obituary, process the emotion. What's it like to think about and contemplate that? It becomes very real when you say, Rob Music, born January 14th, 1980, died, September 1st, 2016. Writing your obituary and then reflecting on the emotions that come up. In this lecture, if you are willing to write your own obituary and you need someone to process that with you, I would love to talk with you about it. My office is on the 6th floor of Recker Memorial, right beside the chapel. Let's talk about it. This creates all kinds of emotions that we can journey with together. I'm not afraid to talk about this issue, hence why I'm lecturing to you. Now, a couple of things. Plan your funeral. I have songs. I have people that I'm going to listen, or I'm going to preach. What about the outfit? Do not, here's my rule, do not put me in a tie. Lord have mercy. Also, what do you want people to say about you? Don't you want to write your own narrative? I hate when people try to define who I am. Oh, Rob Music's such a loudmouth. That's not who I think I am. I want to tell my story. So why not write that out? Why not make a video? Why not let people know who you are? Tell your story. And the question is then, what do you need to do right now as you're thinking about your college experience? What do you need to do in these next 4 to 5 years to prep yourself to live that life so that when people talk about you, they can say, man, that person, wow. Now, death. What do you fear about it? What is your biggest fear? Is it the unknown? Is it pain? Is it the pain that it causes your family? Is it separation? Why don't you take a moment and write down, my biggest fear about death is. Go ahead and pause. Just write it down. My biggest fear in death is it dying? Is it pain? Is it the thought of hell? Is it grief? Now, why does this matter? Well, let's think about it. Here in the last seconds, why does this matter? Well, think about organ donation. Are you an organ donor? Because I've thought about death and what happens afterwards, I'm very confidently an organ donor. I know that for me in my life, I am not going to need my organs after I take my last breath. I want my life to live beyond me. I want to help people. So I signed up. I went to donatelife.com and signed up. When I die, I'll donate my organs. Also, a living will. You know, if something happens to me in a car accident, my family knows, my wife knows what I want to have happen, what I think is a meaningful life. You know, what does it mean to have a quality life? You know, for example, we think about in the state of Oregon right now, the death with dignity laws. A young woman by the name of Brittany Maynard, 29 years old, terminal diagnosis in her head, a brain tumor, and she decided to take some medicine that her doctors prescribed for her so she could take her own life in time to save her from suffering and the destruction of her own terminal illness. Is that something you're comfortable with? You have the ability to take control of this very uncontrollable experience in death by talking about it, by writing about it, by processing it, by planning your funeral, by planning and writing your own obituary. These are things that you can do. And finally, for me, the reason why this is so important is all the work I did when I was a 19-year-old hospice volunteer, writing my own obituary and starting to think about this, prepped me for later in my life. You see, it was in the year 2012, my goddaughter, who I put a little picture up in this PowerPoint, Laura Abigail Miller, beautiful young girl, she was given a terminal diagnosis. And the months that we had with Laura were hard, were sad, were uncertain, but were beautiful also. Because I'd already been thinking about death. And we started talking about Laura's death and what that was going to mean for her, what that meant for her body, what that meant for her family, her mom and dad, my best friends. There was a level of peace that we could have because I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't pushing it out. I wasn't denying it. And ultimately, the question that we have is this: who are you going to talk to this? Who are you going to talk to about this? You know, and am I willing to invest in those things that are going to matter in my life right now? So here are 4 things that experts tell us that dying people want to talk about. Number 1, they want to say, please forgive me for. Dying people want to give forgiveness, and they want to receive forgiveness. So for you, who do you need to forgive? Whose forgiveness do you need to seek? Secondly, dying people want to say thank you. They want to say thank you to people who've impacted their lives. They want to thank people who have made a big splash into their world. So why not today thank the people around you? Maybe you've never done it before. Thank that teacher who's impacted you. Thank your parents. Thank your friends. Thank your NASCAR sponsors, right? Whoever it is in your life. Also, dying people want to say, I love you. To the people that you trust, say it. Because we don't know if tomorrow we'll be here. And finally, dying people want to let you know what they hope or wish for your life. You know, I hope that you do this. I wish for you. Why not share that with somebody? You know that you see talent, potential, you see opportunities. Say that to somebody. Man, I see you being a great coach, or I see you as a teacher, or man, you could do it. You could be a lawyer. Or like, don't give up on yourself. You could be a doctor. You see, all of this matters because November 12th, 2010, it was a late Friday night. My dad called me. I'd worked a long day at work. My dad was tired. He was very emotional. He just lost his brother 2 weeks before. And my dad wanted to talk. 12 minutes into the conversation, my dad's words became very, very slurred. And finally, I couldn't hear his voice anymore. I could hear him breathing very, very deeply and very much with a rattle. Those moments would extend on and on and on. As I picked up another cell phone and tried to call the emergency squad, what I realized was my dad was dying on that phone. You see, my dad had had a massive brainstem stroke. And in the last few minutes of his talking with me before he went to the place of non-responsiveness, Dad was telling me how much he loved me and how he wanted me to care for my mom and my wife. And I was able to receive that. I had no idea those would be the last things I would hear from my dad. But because of this work, because of this thinking and this writing, I was comfortable with the conversation. I didn't tell my dad, "No, don't talk about that, Dad." I could hear him. And forever my life was changed because of that moment. 2 days later, after a long stay of silence in the hospital, my dad would die on a Sunday morning. But his last words were very much like those that we hear all the time, of the "I love yous, I thank yous, I wish for you." And turns out, these conversations happen when we're comfortable with our own mortality. I know this has been a hard lecture, weird, maybe you've turned it off, but what I hope is you'll consider what I've had to say, look over the PowerPoint, do the exercises, and let Cecil process this with you in class. Any questions, come see me. Thanks so much. Bye.